What's it called? That rod?
Wishing stick?
A wishing stick. It's really the name. It's the real name. So these guys have a very intricate way, a very complicated, technical way to find where the water pipe is buried. Basically, you take a metal rod, say some magic words, and they can find exactly where the water pipe is buried deep underground. I was pretty skeptical initially when they were telling me exactly where it was going to be. They were marking out some lines on the ground. Look how accurate this was. That's the line they marked out, and that's where the water pipe is. Literally 100% accurate.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Some of you guys are probably familiar with a dowsing rod. It's basically where you take sticks of metal and you do some type of voodoo and you find like lines or water in the ground. And it just sounds like total BS. Like there's just no other way to explain it. But it's like really accurate. This guy literally found the water line and it's like within an inch of his line, and he let me use it and I found like the same exact spot. So it's not like some weird thing that anybody's doing. It's magic.
Episode: was Joseph Smith's treasure digging fraudulent?
What's it called? That rod?
A wishing stick?
A wishing stick. It's really the name. It's the real name.
Was Joseph Smith's treasure digging fraudulent?
Some of you guys are probably familiar with a dowsing rod. It's basically where you take sticks of metal and you do some type of voodoo and you find like lines or water in the ground. And it just sounds like total BS. Like there's just no other way to explain it. But it's like really accurate. This guy literally found the water line and it's like within an inch of his line.
Was Joseph Smith's treasure digging fraudulent?
So D. Michael Quinn and John DeLynn have spent their careers trying to prove that Joseph Smith and the Mack families were folk magicians. So one of the main premises of D. Michael Quinn's book, Mormonism and the Magical World View, is that Joseph Smith family were superstitious magicians because they used dowsing rods to locate water, but also metal. And that this was a superstitious, scientifically unfounded technology. Wrong. As I will show you, California uses dowsing rods. Dowsing rods have been used for thousands of years to locate water, to locate metal, to locate different rock formations and ancient Roman engineering. They are a well-known technology based on magnetic induction that have been used for thousands of years. And what do we have now? A Yale scholar and a Utah State graduate telling us that this 1,000-year-old technology is somehow superstitious folk magic? Well, I think that John DeLynn, D. Michael Quinn, and Dan Vogel need to really go back to school and learn them some science. The dowsing rod has been used for 1,000 years to locate water and metal. It's a primitive form of a metal detector and works on the same principle of magnetic induction. And I will show you a scholarly paper later on that shows you that every mineral and every vein of water in the ground has a special magnetic signature that certain metals, such as copper rods, can pick up on. And if you have the gentle touch of the master, such as Jesus Christ or Joseph Smith, you can pick up exactly where water is, and you can pick up exactly where buried treasure is, such as the silver mine on one of the Smiths' ventures, in which was very successful. Of course, they're going to tell people they never found anything. Why would you tell people where your treasure is buried? Of course, you're not going to let that know. The Smiths were archaeologists. They weren't looking for magical treasure. They were looking for artifacts. They were looking for actual ancient artifacts. It's called archaeology. Not treasure hunting by some people's standards is archaeology by another. Scientific standards such as Joseph Smith and the Mack family, who carried their archaeological finds up the Erie Canal, as they mention. I mean, my gosh, these Mormon scholars even mention the paper having suspicions that these ships on the Erie Canal were carrying very special artifacts into New York because they were, okay? The Mack and Smith families were instrumental in ancient artifacts. That is the whole foundation of the Book of Mormon allegory. And yes, the Book of Mormon is an allegory. It's a literary technique in which you use a historical fiction to illuminate current political events. That is what Joseph Smith and the Mack families did. They used historical fiction to illuminate current political issues such as slavery, such as polygamy, such as any number of evil things the British invaders were doing from their own Native American roots, which went all the way through the Smith and Mack families. They also were trying to preach or minister to their Native American and brothers and cousins to come into the fold of Christianity and stop colluding with the British and trying to overthrow the United States. That's exactly what the Book of Mormon's about. And I'm sorry that recent scholars, or I don't know if you can call them recent scholars, have missed the entire point. So let's look at the science underlying magnetic induction, or the dowsing rods used to find water or buried metal, which some might call buried treasure.
Here is an article which discusses the studies that have been done on the scientific basis for dowsing, medics, and the ancients' use of electromagnetics, such as in their temples, and the piezoelectricity of granite, the piezoelectricity of marble, and how these were used by the ancients not only for electrical purposes, such as glowing in dark. You can see electrical activity in over water all the time. There's a glow during certain atmospheric conditions in which the water actually glows. But here's an abstract of a study. It's called The Utility and Limits of Dowsing Rods to Charge the Subsurface. And this paper is an analysis of the phenomenon known as dowsing using handheld wires. Dowsing rods move because of large changes in electrical conductivity, he's saying, within the surface ground. Simple tests were performed on buried objects, a few centimeters in diameter, and they did statistical analysis of the ability of these dividing rods to detect variations in conductivity within the ground surface. And basically what he's saying is here, significant changes in the electrical conductivity may be created in the earth by fractures, weathered horizons, and changes in ground size and composition. Coincidentally, these phenomena create higher porosity and permeability, favorable for water production. The use of wire rods has potential applications in military, yes, we always go to the military, and civilian landmine and IED detection. So they're saying we can use them to find buried landmines and IEDs. But then it goes through here and discusses its methodology. The results is that the investigation found that dowsing rods did in fact move in a predictable pattern whenever it detected certain metal or certain water within the aquifers underneath the ground. And here's the map of the electroconductivity of the rods and showing where certain how the electromagnetism changes. Here's where no metal is, but if you bury a metal piece, you're going to have this rounding spiral effect, and your rod is going to follow the spiraling effect of the electromagnetic, just like a magnet does. Remember your simple table magnet? Okay. Oh, that's spooky magic too. Magnets on your refrigerator. Anyway, it goes on and it discusses the complex electrical forces which determine the dowsing rod's movement, and that is that simple electricity in the earth is governed by Ohm's law. Remember Ohm's law, okay? I equals energy. In other words, induction equals energy. So if you've got a negative magnetic pole, you're going to create a friction, an induction, and it's going to make those little dowsing rods move under. But you have to have the gentle hand of a master, such as Joseph Smith Jr. Yes, historians, before you charge the Joseph Smith Jr.'s of witchcraft, please do a little bit of scientific study.
What's it called? That rod?
Wishing stick.
A wishing stick. It's really her name. That's the real name. So these guys have a very intricate way, a very complicated, technical way to find where the water pipe is buried. Basically, you take a metal rod, say some magic words and they can find exactly where the water pipe is buried deep underground.
Some of you guys are probably familiar with a dowsing rod. It's basically where you take sticks of metal and you do some type of voodoo and you find like lines or water in the ground, and it just sounds like total BS. Like there's just no other way to explain it, but it's like really accurate. This guy literally found the water line and it's like within an inch of his line, and he let me use it and I found like the same exact spot. So it's not like some weird thing that anybody's doing. It's magic.